Everyone has a mom coming to pick them up. 5-year-old Nico Alvarez whispered, not realizing the man beside him could hear. Bennett Shaw had been checking the departure time on his phone when the sentence pulled his attention away from the black car, waiting at the curb. The elementary school's pickup line had nearly disappeared. Minivans rolled away one after another. Children waving from back seats while teachers folded orange cones and gathered forgotten water bottles. Bennett's 7-year-old daughter, Chloe, stood beside him in her Navy school sweater, describing a science project he was only half hearing. In 40 minutes, Bennett was supposed to leave for the airport. A company aircraft waited to take him to Toronto, where lenders, board members, and the owners of a logistics firm had agreed to one final meeting before a billion-dollar acquisition. The negotiations had lasted 11 months. If he missed the evening flight, he would miss the only in-person session everyone had accepted before the financing deadline. Nico stood 6 feet away beneath the school awning, hugging a lunchbox shaped like a red fire truck. His uniform shirt was neatly buttoned, though one cuff had been repaired with pale thread. He did not look abandoned. He looked practiced. Each time a car turned into the lane, he straightened. Each time it passed, he lowered his eyes and traced the fire truck's silver ladder with one finger. A teacher named Ms. Hand checked her clipboard. "Your mom texted the office, Nico. She is on her way." Nico nodded quickly, as if protecting his mother from suspicion. "She works far." "Does this happen often?" Bennett asked. Mrs. Hand hesitated. "She is usually 10 or 15 minutes late. She always calls. Today her message said the bus was delayed." Nico glanced up at Bennett's suit, then at the car. "You can go. I know waiting." The words sounded older than 5. Chloe moved closer to him. "My dad is going on a plane." Nico looked toward the street. "My mom goes on 2 buses. Bennett's driver stepped from the car. "Mr. Shaw, we need to leave in 5 minutes." Bennett checked the time again. Missing the flight would not be an inconvenience. The acquisition protected nearly 4,000 jobs at a supplier his company depended on. Competitors were waiting for the deal to fail. His board had warned that remote participation would signal uncertainty. He had promised to be in the room. A cold wind pushed wrappers across the empty pickup lane. The school office lights began switching off one row at a time. "Where is the after-school coordinator?" Bennett asked. Miss Han explained that the program was full and Nico was not enrolled. School policy required a staff member to remain until an authorized adult arrived, but the office closed at 5. It was already 4:42. Nico whispered to his lunchbox, "Everyone has a mom coming." Bennett looked at the child, then at the aircraft schedule on his screen. "Tell the pilots to stand down," he said. His driver stared. "Cancel the flight?" "Yes." Chloe stopped talking. Even she understood the weight in his voice. Bennett called his chief operating officer before anyone could argue. "I will not be in Toronto tonight. Move the legal review online and tell the lenders I will join from here." "They insisted on face-to-face," the executive replied. "If you cancel now, they may postpone the vote. I understand." "Bennett, this meeting holds the financing together." "I understand that too." He ended the call and put the phone in his pocket. Nico watched him. "You missed your plane? I changed my plan." "Because of me?" Bennett crouched until they were eye level. "Because no 5-year-old should have to pretend waiting alone does not hurt." Nico looked embarrassed rather than comforted. "My mom comes. She always comes. I believe you." Bennett did not know then that Nico's mother cleaned his house 3 nights each week. Marisol Alvarez had started working at the Shaw residence 2 months earlier through a staffing agency. Bennett rarely saw the overnight household team. He left instructions through an estate manager, reviewed payroll summaries, and assumed anyone working in his home received the wages and scheduling protections his office required. Marisol arrived after Chloe slept and left before breakfast. To Bennett, She was a name on an approved vendor list. To Nico, the Shaw house was simply the second place mommy cleans. At 4:50, Marisol called the school. Miss Hahn placed the phone on speaker because Nico wanted to hear her voice. "I am coming, mi amor," Marisol said, breathless. The number 12 bus stopped near the bridge. We had to get off. I am walking to the next line. Nico brightened immediately. "Mr. Shaw has a car." Bennett's head lifted at his name. Marisol became silent. "What, Mr. Shaw?" "The plain dad," Chloe said. "My dad?" For another silence followed, longer this time. "Please let me speak to the teacher," Marisol said. Miss Hahn took the phone off speaker. Bennett saw her expression change, while Marisol explained something urgently. When the call ended, the teacher said Marisol would arrive in approximately 30 minutes and had asked that Nico remain inside the office. Bennett offered to drive and collect her. Ms. Hahn explained that school authorization rules prevented transporting Nico without written consent, and Marisol refused to let an employer rearrange the child's custody plan over the phone. Her caution impressed him. They moved into the school lobby. Nico sat on a bench beside Chloe. Bennett joined a video call with his board, keeping one ear on the children. The Toronto team did not hide its frustration. A lender's representative said delaying the in-person meeting might alter the financing terms. Bennett accepted responsibility and asked his deputies to proceed, without pretending the cancellation was caused by weather or mechanical trouble. He had chosen to remain. During the call, Nico opened his lunchbox. Inside were 2 crackers wrapped in a napkin and a note written in careful block letters. "Mama always comes back." He read only the word Mama, touching each letter. Chloe asked why he had not eaten the crackers. "They are for later if the buses are bad." Bennett looked away from the screen. Marisol arrived at 5:28, moving quickly through the lobby in black work shoes and a gray coat that was too thin for the weather. She had a cleaning tote over one shoulder and an employee badge clipped backward near the pocket. Her hair had escaped its knot, and her face held the controlled fear of a parent arriving late to a place where people might decide lateness meant neglect. Nico ran to her. She dropped the tote and knelt, checking his face, hands, and coat before holding him. "I am sorry." "You came," he said. "I always come." Only after he settled against her did she look at Bennett. Recognition made her straighten. "Mr. Shaw, you work at my home." Through Bright Path Domestic Services. Bennett saw the agency logo on her badge. "Why are you coming from work at this hour? Your household shift begins at 7. Marisol adjusted the tote. "I clean offices downtown before your house." "Every day?" "Monday through Friday there." 3 nights at your residence." Miss Hahn gently said Marisol had called before dismissal and followed every required pickup procedure. Marisol thanked her, then turned to Bennett. "I am sorry you had to wait. I did not ask Nico to speak to you. He did not ask me for anything. I can explain the delay to your estate manager. It will not happen during my shift. This is not about your shift." Marisol's eyes moved toward Chloe. She lowered her voice. "I cannot lose the agency position." Bennett recognized the fear without understanding its history. "You are not losing anything because I stayed with your son. People say that before they decide, a mother has too many problems." Nico pulled her sleeve. He missed his plane. Marisol looked at Bennett as if the information created a debt she could not afford. "You should not have done that. I chose to. For us, for a child waiting after everyone else left. That is still for us." Bennett wanted to tell her the sacrifice did not require repayment. Instead, he asked whether she and Nico needed a ride. Marisol declined twice before accepting because the replacement bus was still delayed and the temperature was dropping. She provided her address to Ms. Hahn, signed the release form, and sat in the back with both children while Bennett joined another negotiation call from the front. The drive crossed parts of the city Bennett knew mainly through reports. Marisol and Nico lived in a small apartment above a bakery, 40 minutes from the school by 2 buses when connections worked. Nico attended through a district transfer because Marisol's sister had once lived near the school and helped with pickup. The sister had moved for work 6 weeks earlier. Marisol had applied to the after-school program, but the waiting list extended through the semester. At her building, Bennett asked the question that had formed during the drive: why 2 cleaning jobs if BrightPath is paying the rate in our contract? Marisol's face closed. I should not discuss agency business. I own the house where the agency sends you. That does not mean the agency will protect me. What does that mean? She looked at Nico, then at Chloe. It means this is not a conversation for children. Bennett gave her his card and wrote a number on the back that reached his office directly. Call when you are ready. Marisol almost refused it. Then she placed the card inside her badge holder. The acquisition meeting failed to produce a final agreement that night. One lender postponed its approval. 2 board members accused Bennett of damaging months of work for a private matter someone else could have handled. His chief operating officer said the school could have called the police or child services if Marisol remained late. That is exactly why I stayed, Bennett replied. He spent the next morning repairing the negotiation. He accepted a higher financing fee and agreed to return to Toronto 2 days later. The cost of canceling the flight was real, though not catastrophic. Bennett did not tell Marisol the amount. Sacrifice used as a bill was not kindness. Marisol did not call. Instead, Bennett asked his household finance director for the BrightPath contract. Shaw Meridian Holdings contracted BrightPath Domestic Services to pay household cleaners $28 per hour, provide overtime, guarantee predictable schedules, and offer paid sick time. The invoices showed full compliance. Marisol's agency pay records were not included because BrightPath classified its workers as employees managed independently. Bennett's general counsel warned him not to investigate one employee's private records without consent. He agreed. He asked only whether BrightPath had complaints. The vendor review showed excellent performance and low turnover on paper. That evening, Marisol arrived for her scheduled house shift. Bennett was waiting in the staff kitchen, not in his office. She stopped when she saw him. Did I do something wrong? No. Then why are you here? Because I need to know whether the contract with BrightPath is doing what we pay it to do. Marisol placed her tote beside the door. For me or everyone, if there is a problem. She remained standing. You may not like the answer. I would like the truth. The truth can cost workers more than owners. Bennett asked whether she wanted an advocate or attorney present. The question surprised her. She said she wanted her friend Lucia, another BrightPath cleaner, on the phone. Bennett agreed and left the room while she called. When Marisol invited him back, she explained. 3 years earlier, she had worked for a commercial cleaning contractor called Sterling Facility Group. Her immigration status was lawful but temporary, while a family-based adjustment application remained pending. She possessed valid work authorization, though renewals arrived unpredictably. Her supervisor repeatedly told her that any complaint about wages could create questions about her papers. He paid her for 30 hours when she worked closer to 45, assigned unpaid travel between buildings, and withheld overtime by moving hours across payroll weeks. When she asked for written records, he said people with complicated status should be grateful for steady work. Marisol knew some threats were exaggerated. She also knew that one missed filing or confused government notice could affect her entire life. She had a child, limited savings, and no lawyer. She remained until Sterling lost a contract and dismissed several cleaners without final wages. BrightPath was better, but not as good as the contract Bennett believed he had purchased. The agency deducted uniform, transportation, and placement administration fees. It paid Marisol $19 per hour for work billed to Bennett's household at a much higher rate. Her schedule changed with little notice. Refusing an assignment reduced future hours. Paid sick leave existed in policy, but required approval from a manager who rarely answered. She worked the downtown office job directly for another contractor, because BrightPath alone did not cover rent, childcare, food, and the legal fees for her status application. "Have they threatened your immigration status?" Bennett asked. "Not directly. Then Sterling did. Yes." "Did you report it? To whom?" The supervisor said payroll was correct. The owner said the supervisor knew the hours. "A worker center helped me write a complaint, but I was afraid to attach my case number. I stopped answering when they asked for documents." Bennett did not tell her she should have fought harder. Fear created by a real imbalance did not become irrational because a billionaire could now see it. "Why did you take the BrightPath assignment at my home?" he asked. "Because the overnight hours let me pick up Nico most days. When downtown keeps us late, I miss the first bus. Yesterday, the supervisor added a conference floor after another cleaner called sick. He said leaving would be job abandonment. So you were forced to choose between keeping the job and reaching school on time. I chose both. The buses chose otherwise." She said it without self-pity. Bennett asked what solution she wanted. Marisol replied immediately, "Do not fire BrightPath tomorrow. People will lose hours before you understand who needs them." He had been thinking exactly that. "Then what? Find out what workers are actually paid. Ask about fees. Ask whether schedules match the hours you approve. And do not use my name until I have legal advice." Bennett arranged independent labor counsel through a worker rights nonprofit, not his corporate lawyers, and made the service available to any BrightPath employee who chose it. Marisol's immigration file was reviewed confidentially. Her current work authorization was valid. Her pending application was not endangered by reporting wage theft. Counsel also explained that Sterling's old threats might support claims for unpaid wages and retaliation. Though evidence would be difficult, after 3 years, Marisol did not become fearless after hearing this. She asked what would happen if Sterling contacted someone involved in her case. The attorney described protections, but did not promise risk-free justice. Marisol chose to proceed only with a confidential wage claim, supported by surviving pay stubs, text messages, and schedules. Her choice mattered more than Bennett's anger. An audit of BrightPath revealed that Marisol was not alone. The agency met household service contracts by showing clients high wage rates, while deducting mandatory fees from workers. Some deductions were legal but poorly disclosed. Others violated state wage rules. Cleaners were scheduled across distant homes without paid travel time. Guaranteed shifts existed in contracts but not worker agreements. The agency's managers did not explicitly target immigrant employees, yet workers with limited English or uncertain knowledge of their rights received the least favorable assignments and were less likely to challenge deductions. Bennett's own office had reviewed invoices, background checks, and service quality. Nobody had interviewed the workers. The contract's fair wage clause required BrightPath to certify compliance, and executives accepted the certification tend because the homes remained clean and complaints from clients were low. Once again, polished paperwork had replaced human reality. Bennett met with BrightPath's owner, who defended the agency's costs. Recruiting, transportation coordination, insurance, uniforms, training, and last-minute replacements were expensive. He said workers willingly signed agreements and could reject assignments. Marisol's schedules showed otherwise. After 2 refusals, she lost 12 hours the following month. The owner called that normal demand allocation rather than punishment. Bennett did not threaten to destroy the company. He gave BrightPath a deadline to repay unlawful deductions, compensate travel time, rewrite scheduling policies, and permit direct worker interviews. An independent monitor would verify wages. BrightPath agreed after several clients joined the demand. Managers responsible for retaliation were removed. The contract remained temporarily because Marisol had warned that sudden cancellation would hurt workers first. At Shaw Meridian, Bennett ordered a wider vendor review. His company used thousands of contracted cleaners, security guards, drivers, and food service workers. Supplier dashboards measured cost, attendance, and client satisfaction. They rarely measured whether the people performing the work received the wages and schedules promised in contracts. Procurement bonuses rewarded savings. No one called exploitation a goal. The structure made it easy to remain unseen. Marisol's immediate problem still required a practical solution. Bennett offered her direct employment at the Shaw residence, with the hourly wage already budgeted in the vendor contract, full benefits, predictable hours, and paid travel. She asked whether accepting would make her dependent on his goodwill. It would make you an employee protected by written policy, he said. Policies change, so the schedule and wage will be in an employment agreement reviewed by your advocate. She looked at the proposal for a long time. I need pickup flexibility, not fewer hours. I still need to earn enough. They designed a split schedule around Nico's school day. Marisol would work at the residence from 9 until 2:30 on weekdays, with 2 evening shifts she selected in advance. She trained for a daytime household coordinator role that included inventory and vendor oversight, but no inflated title suggested charity. Her pay reflected the additional duties. A backup pickup list included her sister when available, a licensed after-school provider, funded through a standard employee child care benefit, and the school program once a place opened. Bennett expanded that benefit to household and contracted workers rather than creating a private exception for Marisol. Workers could request predictable scheduling without disclosing immigration details or family crises to supervisors. Marisol did not accept until the nonprofit attorney reviewed everything. Nico's first week under the new schedule did not become perfect. A meeting ran late on Tuesday, but Marisol left when the clock reached 2:30 because her hours were no longer controlled by a supervisor who called family responsibility abandonment. She reached the school before dismissal and stood in the pickup line while children were still emerging. Nico saw her and ran so quickly that Miss Hahn reminded him to walk. "You were first," he said. "Not first. On time." He seemed to test the phrase, on time. The moment mattered, but Marisol did not want her son taught that love was measured by punctuality alone. That evening, she explained that being late had never meant she forgot him. Buses failed. Employers made unfair demands. Adults could love children and still be trapped by things they were trying to change. Nico asked whether Bennett had fixed the buses. No. Did he fix your job? He helped make it fairer. I also asked, and other workers spoke. This distinction mattered to her. The Toronto acquisition eventually closed at a higher cost than Bennett originally expected. His board reviewed the flight cancellation because executives could not abandon major obligations without accountability. Bennett explained the choice, accepted criticism, and changed the company's deal process so one person's physical presence was never the only path to approval. He did not argue that staying with Nico caused the improved system. He admitted he had allowed himself to become a single point of failure at work, while other employers made Marisol a single point of failure at home. Chloe continued asking about Nico. With Marisol's permission, the children met once at a weekend park. Bennett did not turn the relationship into a public story or encourage Chloe to see herself as part of a rescue. They traded stickers and argued over whose turn it was on the slide. Several weeks later, Bennett attended a vendor accountability meeting where contracted workers spoke without supervisors present. Lucia described unpaid travel. A security guard explained that changing schedules made childcare impossible. Procurement leaders listened while independent monitors compared contract promises with pay records. Bennett did not announce that every problem was solved. Some vendors resisted. Cost rose. One contract ended after the company refused repayment terms, and workers were offered transfers. Before services moved elsewhere, Marisol joined a paid worker advisory panel, but refused to become the face of an advertising campaign. "I do not want the company saying one late pickup taught it compassion," she told Bennett. "The problem existed before you heard my son. You are right. What happened at school was one moment. It was the moment that made me stop. Then keep stopping when people without children are being ignored too." He wrote that down. The review exposed why Marisol had kept silent after leaving Sterling. 2 coworkers had complained through channels. One received a final check, but the contractor then described her as unreliable to an employer. The other was offered a settlement written in English and warned that signing would prevent immigration confusion. Neither threat changed anyone's legal status, yet both worked because uncertainty carried power. Marisol agreed to let the worker center use her records only after the other women chose to participate. Their statements showed unpaid travel, altered timesheets, and messages instructing cleaners to report fewer hours than they had worked. Sterling denied targeting immigrants and argued that supervisors had made isolated payroll errors. The investigation remained unresolved, and Bennett could not purchase an ending. He paid the nonprofit's general case costs through a grant that gave him no control over strategy or clients. Marisol insisted on that distance. I do not want your lawyer deciding which truth is convenient to your company," she said. Bennett accepted the boundary. When an investigator asked why she had waited, Marisol answered that survival had required choosing the danger she understood. Reporting could have protected future workers, but losing wages then would have endangered Nico. She regretted the silence without allowing anyone to rename fear as consent. Bennett began understanding that courage was easy to demand from people who would not lose rent, childcare, or stability when consequences arrived. One rainy afternoon, Bennett returned to Hawthorne Elementary for Chloe's pickup. His Toronto calendar was clear because he had stopped scheduling flights during the narrow hours he had promised his daughter. Marisol stood near the front of the line beneath a blue umbrella. Nico held her hand, bouncing on his toes. A new child waited near the office with a teacher, watching the road after most cars had gone. Nico noticed and became quiet. Then he walked over with Marisol and asked the child whether someone was coming. The girl nodded. "My uncle. His bus is slow." Nico sat beside her without making a speech. Marisol remained nearby. Bennett watched from the curb. Canceling one flight had not repaired wage theft, immigration fear, childcare shortages, or the quiet shame children carried when adults were delayed. It had created enough time to hear one sentence and enough responsibility to follow where it led. Chloe tugged his sleeve. "Are we waiting too?" Bennett looked at Marisol. She nodded. "For a little while," he said. Nico opened his fire truck lunchbox and offered the girl one of the crackers he still saved for bad buses. This time, when he looked toward the road, he was not waiting alone.